All right, so today we're back with another design discussion with Design Doc videos, and today we're taking a look at Roller Coaster Tycoon, a timeless design. I'm assuming he's going to be talking about the original Roller Coaster Tycoon made by a single developer. I believe fully programmed in assembly, and it's still renowned as a great game and a great programming feat, to be honest. So, anyways, yeah, let's take a look. And of course, a great game, as well as those things.
Roller Coaster Tycoon is an all-time classic. It holds up incredibly well today, even
Yeah.
after 20 years of advancements in game design.
I mean, I can actually find now remakes of it and improved versions of the game for free. Nowadays, it's actually pretty good. I think even with multiplayer and other stuff. And the same goes for the games made by the same guy. There's another game made by the same guy has the exact same UI that is about making quote unquote trade routes and like train tracks and boat routes and routes and stuff like that, which is quite good. And many of the games from these guy actually, have had like a remake by the community because of how good they are.
And like so many other gaming classics, it's been remade, copied, mobilized, revived, and had spiritual successors, all with the same basic idea, but with wildly different results. Let's take a tour of Roller Coaster Tycoon, its sequels, and some of its competitors, and see what made the design of the original work so well, and how the others have tried to recapture its magic. 20 years ago, Chris Sawyer and a very small team made Roller Coaster Tycoon, and boy does
Not
RCT
alone,
feel like
but
the late 90s. This game has
love this.
tons of UI cues taken straight from Windows 98. Even the default prices of concessions scream late 90s. Hamburgers for 150, drinks for 120. That's adorable. Just to give you some perspective, Roller Coaster Tycoon was
theme
launched
park
on the
for sure.
same year as Diablo 2, the first Sims game, the Sega Dreamcast, and Super Smash Bros. For the N64.
So in that respect, you could argue that graphically, it was not that impressive, right? But the thing about this game, I think one of the reasons the game is so good is that first of all, it ran very well for what it was, for the amount of simulation that a game like this had at the time specifically. And the other thing is, it was complex enough, but it didn't go too far in its complexity. And everything worked kind of the way that you would expect it to work as well. But definitely the UI would be one of the things that you could definitely improve.
It's been a while, so it's no surprise that parts of RCT feel a little dated. But the game holds up incredibly well despite its age. Below the worn surface is the game's core of not one, but two great game design overtures merged into one. An intuitive coaster design engine, and a robust management simulation. These design elements are the backbone that makes Roller Coaster Tycoon so beloved, and they work as well today as they did back in 1999.
Yeah, definitely.
The first layer is the coaster design engine. RCT is all about designing your own theme park with amazing roller coasters, but it wasn't the first game with that hook. Theme Park from 1994 lets you design a theme park, but you could only drop in prefab rides, make pretty basic tracks, queue up some lines, and that's it. Better than nothing, but not super creative. Roller Coaster Tycoon gave players a more complete set of tools for designing in 3 dimensions. The game wasn't rendering the tracks in 3D. A small team of developers in the late 90s would be hard-pressed to put out a full 3D game, much less one that would still run on low-end hardware.
Yeah.
So the game was built using tiles and pre-rendered sprites. Avoiding full 3D modeling came with a benefit that wouldn't be clear until years later. It's really, really tough to make a true 3D park designer system work well. The latest games in this genre mostly use a spline system, where you make smooth curves and natural shapes for coaster tracks and walking paths. It lets you make great looking designs if you put the time in, but these spline systems can be really tricky to use. Weaving a track through terrain.
But like Roller Coaster Tycoon 3, I don't think it had the spline system. and it was basically like a copy of the Roller Coaster Tycoon original system, where you would place specific angles and stuff, specific tiles, let's say, and it would actually, I think it worked quite decently as well.
Rain, around obstacles, and back onto itself can be a giant headache. Something that looks perfect from one angle can look like garbage from another. You can easily end up with an ugly hitch or bump where you're trying to force two ends of your coaster together.
Yeah, definitely.
None of that is a problem in RCT1. The game limits your design to tiles you can snap together instead of spline curves. You can't get every track angle to work in RCT1, but you can still make good designs, and tiles are just way easier to work with. A freeform coaster designer by itself is just a creative tool. To make it a game, you need to add some rules. There were some basic ones, like how different building materials let you build banked turns, or that some types of coasters were cheaper than others. But maybe the most impressive piece of RCT's coaster engine is how the game models the rides you're making. As fast as you can make your designs, the game will tell you how fun or intense your ride will be for your customers.
Yeah.
Design a quick loop, and the game will tell you that it's boring. Design something that looks more fun, and the game will let you know you did well. Most of the time,
It's true that I don't exactly know. I mean, you can cheese it. You can end up kind of knowing how it works and cheese it. But it is whatever algorithm they're using to determine this. I think it takes into account the maximum speed, the different speed changes, the for the intensity as well, the loops, and the different kind of G's that you would get depending on the vertical or lateral G's as well. And it takes all of that into account and assumes a certain score, which is definitely interesting. I don't exactly know how it works, but it's definitely
modeling engine
well
gives
done,
plausible reviews about your coasters, which gives players another incentive for tinkering with their coaster designs. You can
But yeah, there's definitely the kind of game of where you would make a coaster design, and then based on those results, you might tweak a couple of curves, a couple of banks, in order to reduce the G's or increase the G's, in order to get it better. And yeah, I do remember going back and forth into it. And I've been lately, well, not lately, but like in the last year, I played an original remake of this game, which is actually quite good. I'm assuming he's going to talk about it. I don't remember exactly the name.
optimize your coaster for the most fun without making people lose their lunch, or make it a 15G death trap. The modeling engine pairs creative freedom with automatic feedback, which gives the game a ton of replayability. Roller Coaster Tycoon could have been an interesting game with just the coaster designer. Games like Factorio, Minecraft, and the Animal Crossing series do well with a big focus on creative elements. But on top of the coaster,
Definitely, Animal Crossing is a very interesting game. It's a very interesting concept. Because of the lack of objective. There's really no objective at all. It's just have fun, design your house, get objects if you want them. Like, sure, there's like this side objective of like paying your loan, but it doesn't really affect you in any way. Like, the only objective that you get from it, the only gain that you get from it is that once you pay your loan, you can potentially. I'm talking mostly about the last one. I don't really know too much about the previous ones. But yeah, once you get paid a certain amount of money, then you can upgrade your house. So therefore, you have more spaces to create and do whatever you want. But yeah, the lack of objective in those games is very, very interesting. Minecraft, it's funny because it used to be a completely objective-less game, and then they slowly started adding newer objectives, and they added the end and stuff like that, which added objectives to the game, which is nice. But yeah, it's not as objective-less as others.
engine is a second layer of the design, a great management sim. If you strip away the theming, management sims are more or less a progression system. Like an RPG, you set out to build stats and guide development according to the options at your disposal.
And what I remember from this game, actually, from Roller Coaster Tycoon, is that it's actually quite difficult because a lot of the times you end up happening that you start designing you go a little bit crazy designing your theme park, and you end up being in depth, and you haven't attracted enough people yet to make everything that you've created worth it. And then you end up having that issue where you're not making enough money and you're just paying a bunch of stuff. which is, yes, I did find it quite
Instead of a
quite challenging.
character, in RCT you're developing your theme park business. Instead of taking actions to boost magic or strength, you're boosting customer opinions, cleanliness, and profit. Management sims and RPGs both use the mechanics of progression, but each with different facades. The building blocks of the simulation in RCT are the park guests, officially called peeps. Each peep is modeled with surprising detail, especially for a game from that era.
Exactly.
They
Yeah,
all
that I think is one of the things that is quite impressive from this game is the amount of simulation that goes behind. The fact that every roller coaster is simulated, and you've got all of these calculations going on behind, as well as the each of the single like NPCs who are walking around, have needs, whether they have to go eat, whether they have to go pee or whatever. They have different intentions or something, types of rides they might like more than others, and the amount of money that they have. Like here, they can see the amount of money they spend, etc. And it is quite well made.
all have needs meters, kinda like The Sims, and they wander the park to handle those needs. They react to new park rides, new concession stands, price changes, layout problems, park conditions, and more. The way the game simulates hundreds of peeps is really impressive for the time, and works to make the management sim feel
It's
realistic.
not just hundreds; it's like thousands of peeps.
Management sims can get away with a lot of other sins of game development if they can just make you believe you're running the show. Look at Football Manager or Out of the Park Baseball, two games that simulate managing a pro sports team. They're impenetrable
really
for people who aren't fans of the
those types of
sport.
games, to be
They
honest.
look like math homework. They have no music, no story but the one you make for yourself.
Although I don't understand these games, I still like Democracy, the game Democracy 4 specifically, which is a game that is purely UI, and it is quite funny to play with.
But they still work as games because of how well they incorporate progression mechanics to make you believe you're the person in charge of your favorite baseball or soccer team. Now, what if you could combine the structure and mechanics of a management sim with something with a little more creative flair? Sound familiar? RCT uses the management sim as a vehicle to add replayability and stickiness to the game.
And it's not just that; it's just that mostly. So not only you have the creativity in the sense that it's not enough. Like, once you've made one park, you've not done with the game. You probably want to make more parks. So that is like a big thing to it, sure. But it's not just that. It's just that it's very visual. It's very pleasing to see the roller coaster going, to see the peeps moving around and so on. Like in a manager sim, like a soccer manager, like football manager. It's just not fun. Like you only see the matches every once in a while, but the matches are kind of like a culmination of the work you've done previously. While here is like a constant thing. Like you're gonna be creating your roller coaster while everything else is going on.
The creative coaster design engine and the substantial management sim work together to cover up each other's faults. It's a management sim, but it's colorful, fun, and easy to get into. It's a creative sandbox with concrete goals, progression, and strategy. The marriage of gameplay elements keeps people interested in the game for longer than the coaster designer or the management sim could do on their own. The core of RCT works as a blueprint for other games to follow, and the others in the genre have clearly taken cues from RCT1, but they all put their own spin on it. RCT2 was practically an expansion pack, a good game
Fair
with
enough.
solid additions to the formula, but really just a refinement of RCT1. RCT3 was a more dramatic revamp with a transition to 3D.
This is the first one that I actually played, and but it is still I still think that it is a very good game.
It still doesn't use a spline system. The build tools are still all about tiles. They're just now actually rendered real-time in 3D. The game's aesthetics haven't aged well, but the
Yeah, of
gameplay
course.
is
I mean, as soon as you pass to 3D, the visuals are most likely going to age.
still mostly the same. It's good. It was also the last game that Chris Sawyer worked on. Roller Coaster Tycoon 4 Mobile was an uninspired, glitchy cash grab, full of the worst in mobile game design. Wait timers, a pretty heinous microtransaction scheme,
Yeah,
features
I'll be
stripped
honest,
out
I
from
don't
the
even
previous
know why you're
games,
talking about
it
it.
handcuffs creative freedom, and completely erodes the foundation of the original game's design. RCT World is the most recent series release, but it's another bad imitation. The art direction is dull, you sometimes have to fight the camera and interface, it chugs even on powerful computers if you let it run long enough. On top of that, the creation tools are a mess. The game shows why a 3D spline system is so tricky to implement. The jank breaks sidewalks at the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
RCT World is a buggy mess. Even if it has all the right design components on paper, the execution ruins the fun.
I mean, honestly, I didn't even know this game existed. Like, for me, the one after, like, Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 was Planet Coaster.
Your imagination can't run free if you're waiting for the frame rate to recover. You can't get lost in the fantasy of running a park if your guests glitch out, your terrain won't behave, or the game crashes to the desktop. It's a shame that the series has struggled to return to the highs of the first game, but other studios have tried to get...
Architect, exactly. This game is basically a successor, like, how do we call this? Like it's basically a remake successor of Roller Coaster Tycoon 1, and it is pretty good. It pretty much has everything you would expect it, and it works pretty much similarly to the first one, and it's just a remade 3D version of it, basically, and it's pretty good.
Get there. Parkitect is promising, and it's strongly inspired by the original, but it's mostly a sandbox for now. It's still pretty early. The most
like, I played it not that long ago. I don't know exactly when this video came out. The game came out 4 years ago. So yeah, I played it like in this year, basically, 2023 or like late 2022. And by that time, it was already like pretty good. You had a lot of missions already. Like, the sandbox was actually fun. And
interesting offshoot to talk about is Planet Coaster.
Planet Coaster, I don't know exactly what he's going to say, but I'm assuming he's going to mention this. Like, Planet Coaster is great. Like, I played it and it's awesome. But what it is, it's a game for creative people. Like, it focuses a lot more on the creative aspect of creating your park, on decorating your park, and making perfect rides and like the perfect environments around the rides, a lot more than its management part of the game. The game, I think, management-wise, is actually quite easy. It's just that it really is tailored to those people who want to spend ages making their park, decorating every single thing, every bush, every flower, every little detail in a sign and everything. I think it's great, but again, if you are that kind of player, then it's awesome game. If you are more into the management and just creating the park itself, it goes a little bit too much, and your park feels, I would say, ugly and too simple if you don't spend that time on it. I think that, I guess that's
developed by the same studio that made RCT 3. Planet Coaster's biggest innovation is how it improves the fidelity and usability of the tools used for making coasters and decorating your park exactly as you imagine it.
Exactly, yeah. Like, if you look at stuff that people create for Planet Coaster, it's incredible. The parks are literally, like, it wouldn't be a believable real life park, to be honest. Even some real life parks don't look as good as what people make in this game.
Tools are still a little finicky, but they give you enough control where if you really invest the time, you can make some truly stunning works of coaster art with themed elements.
Exactly, like, look at that.
You can make some truly stunning works of coaster art with,
like, this looks like a real life. It's incredible. Like, they have the coaster going, all of these buildings, all like handcrafted, by the way, and it's
themed elements, amazing. Timed events, and countless configurations. The fantastic coaster design half of the equation is paired with a management sim that is largely the same as RCT, but feels kind of like a missed opportunity. The basic elements of the sim are all there, and Planet Coaster does add a couple of items that weren't in RCT, but they're pretty superficial. There are tons of options in concession stands for what to sell and for how much, but the options don't really matter. You can choose to sell or not sell different toppings in the ice cream store, for example, but it's not clear that your guests actually care one way or the other. The new Ride Queue rating system matters a lot for getting park guests interested in your ride, but you can just stick random garbage near the line and still get a 100% rating. Look at this!
Yeah, this is what I said. It looked quite simple.
100%. Full stars. Would wait again. The game doesn't...
Again, like I said, the management itself it's maybe exploitable, I guess. But it's mostly like it's really made, I think, for people who want to make it beautiful properly, you know.
Do much to solve one of the bigger problems
And
of
I
the
think their choice there as the developers, they decided to make it not painful for people who didn't want to spend that much time, you know, in the sense that if you put a couple of trees here and there around the queue, is gonna work and it's fine. That you don't have to go like all in and spend an hour
the
on your
original
queue.
game. If you run into cash flow problems, you don't really have much to do until you dig yourself out of the hole, especially if you've already taken out loans. On one hand, it's a testament to the design of the original that a repeat of the management sim design is still fun, but you'd think that at least some of the new additions would contribute more to the experience. The game's way less buggy than RCT World, but still a little buggier than you would like. It's not perfect, and Planet Coaster isn't as beginner friendly as RCT1 was, but
Fair
it's
enough.
definitely the best 3D coaster builder, and a good game in its own right. Roller Coaster
Definitely.
Tycoon is a great example of two
Like
genres.
for me, if you want like a good remake of RCT1, you have to go for Parkitect. For me, that's like a no-brainer. If you want like a modern take on it and a focus on creativity and decorations, I guess, on making your park, then definitely Planet Coaster is your way to go.
Merging to form something better than the sum of their parts. Chris Sawyer and his team made a game that was easy to start, addicting, and deep enough to keep players coming back for years. It's a great design, and it's just as playable today as it was 20 years ago. There's no reason it can't go 20 more.
Definitely, yeah. But yeah, that game, that song is so good, by the way. That's the story. But yeah, that guy made. I don't remember how it's called. I even have it. But yeah, he made other games like other simulation management games, which are still again very playable today, which is incredible. And yeah, Planet Coasters are a thing. Planet Coaster One, and it's very much like a staple in video games. Video game development is like extremely known for how good it was at the time, and how again how incredible it still is today. To be honest, and the fact that it's such an old game, it can be pretty much played anywhere today. Like you can get a version of it on mobile, and it's still a great game. And yeah, so again, yeah, I think that the big thing that this game had compared to other management games is the fact that it has that extra creativity and visual side that other management games don't have, and that's really the big thing. And I think also that's why like Zoo Tycoon games also work, is because they have that visual side to it. And personally, like unless you like animals very much, Zoo Tycoons, the issue they have is that there's no so much creativity into how you make your park, because whenever you decide, oh, okay, I have enclosures with elephants, for example, like sure you have to take care of your elephants, but there's only so much you can do in that enclosure. You know, you can decorate it, but that's basically as much as you can do. You don't have that roller coaster creation part, which I think is a big part of the Coaster Tycoon, of course. So, anyways, yeah, it's a great game. I guess there's not much else to say. So, anyways, thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.